Hi everyone, and welcome back to Java and the Librarians. This is episode 3. We didn't have one for last month, which we do apologize for, but we're back again, and we hope you enjoyed this month's show. So, today's book we're going to talk about An Amish Market, and it is a novella set with 4 stories. It's about still mourning the loss of her brother. Eli encourages the carving talents of his friend Lloyd while working at a gift shop in town, but his father disapproves every week. Hannah brings home churned butter to market, and Ezra purchases some. Is he in the market for love? Embarrassed by shattering a jar of beets at the combination store of B County, Texas, Isabella doesn't expect the handsome manager Frosty's reaction. And working together at the old Amish mill, Stella and David must find out what's behind strange happenings there. So, let's see what
Doesn't
y'all thought about this book.
doesn't it all just sound so thrilling?
I like how they put the whole summary all together and seem like it's just one big story.
Well, I will say this on the copy that I have, it's all actually split up. So they say Lovebirds by Amy Clipson. Here's a summary for that one. A Bid for Love by Kathleen Fuller. Summary for that. Sweeter Than Honey by Kelly Irvin. Summary. Love in Store by Vanetta Chapman. Summary. So I will say that is nice to at least get it broken up so that way you know what's describing
Yeah.
what.
So, what did you think about it?
I Well, this isn't my first go at Amish fiction. It's my first go at any of these authors though within Amish fiction. And I think the last time I read novellas was when we attempted to do oh the Glass Throne books. Sorry, I'm blanking on the name.
Throne of Glass.
Yes, Throne of Glass book last year. So I haven't read novellas since then. Generally I liked it, and I also liked that it was different authors for the novellas. In part because like a lot of the novellas I've read before have been compilations of novellas by the same author. What did
Well, I did not. This is probably the second DNF that I've had since we have started the show. But I did read the whole first story, which was Lovebirds, and I really liked that one. All the other ones I couldn't really get into, and this wasn't necessarily the story or the characters. I really believe there was the writing because it's 4 different authors, and you can see 4 different writing styles. This was my first time reading an Amish book, so I didn't really have anything else to kind of compare it to. The only known author that I know about is Beverly Lewis because I work in a library and that's what checks out a lot.
Yeah,
So,
Beverly Lewis is a big name in Amish fiction.
yeah. So I never read it, but I will say that I will probably pick up another one again. Just I don't know how soon that I will do that one.
That's fair. I mean, I read a decent amount of Amish fiction as a teenager because I that's when I discovered Beverly Lewis, and I started reading some of her stuff, and her stuff is very Amish romance type of stuff. And actually, when I told a couple coworkers that we were reading this book, and I'm like, yeah, it's supposed to be Amish fiction. Like without, I hadn't gone too far in it, so I didn't realize what the other 3 were all Amish romance. And we're talking about it, and we had a couple patrons that are regulars that we're also discussing it with, and one of them goes, "Yeah, those 65-year-old ladies really love their Amish romance," and we chuckle about that because, like, it
That's
Amish.
all I into.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, we chuckle, we make the stereotype, but it it very much seems to be like a lot of the people that check out the Amish romances are the teenagers that are just now discovering Beverly Lewis or the 60 something. So we chuckle, and one person goes, "Wow, Amish romance, that's a thing." And we're like, "Oh, good God, yes." Like, we have in large print, there are just shelves and shelves of Amish fiction romance books. And if you come into the library, I'm sure somebody can find you a whole bunch of things to read if that's what you're into. No judgment. It's just, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And I mean, we all can find you an author within that very, very, very thin genre. There are about 50 billion authors.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's one lady that comes in all the time, and this is all she get is the Amish fiction. And she always telling me how good it is and stuff like that, but I just never really picked it up or anything to try it out.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where I refuse to believe that there's a bad genre, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like each genre has good books, but those books are not necessarily your books. Like, it took the only reason I even own Amish Market is because I was going through an airport and I didn't want to read what I already had. So I go into the bookstore and I happen to just grab this and, you know, walked out with it. And then it came time to discuss books for April. And I go, hey, I have this book. Do you want to read it? And Ericka hadn't ever read Amish fiction. So we kind of ended there.
Yeah, but I was excited to try it though. Like I said, I won't knock a genre just because it's not my particular genre that I go to. But I think overall I gave this 2 stars, and if you to be honest, I guess I was just only rating the first story because I didn't really, care for the other 3 that was in there.
Yeah. And my thing is, I want to say I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I made it through all of the novellas, and me giving it 4 stars. I don't want to say that this was a great collection. Um, my giving it 4 stars is mostly I enjoyed it. It's been 12 years at least since I've read Amish fiction. So it kind of was me coming back to it and coming clear headed about it rather than any of it just kind of building up upon each other and all looking the same. Granted, I liked the first 2 stories the best. Sweeter Than Honey, the third one, I thought was the worst. And then the fourth one was good. Like that was a solid 3.5 stars. I think one say I gave it a 4, and then because it was 3.5. The first 2 I thought were solid 4-star stories. Um, just because they kind of pushed the ideas a little bit. You get this kid. One of them has this kid who's making things, whittling and carving, just because he likes to whittle and carve and isn't doing anything else with them. He just makes them, puts them aside, goes to the next thing, and his entire family tells him how it's un-Amish of him to do that.
Prideful.
Yeah, pride is a big thing in the Amish community to avoid. So him carving and making things that are beautiful to look at, like he's happy that he does it. It just makes him happy and it relaxes him. But his family tells him that it makes him proud and it's not okay, but they don't kick him out. And I mean, it feels like that's pushing the genre a little bit.
Yeah, and like on that part, I did have a little bit of, I don't know, I guess because it's different styles and upbringings and all of that. But when they said that there was prideful, I was like, it's a talent. Is it wrong to show your talent? Is it wrong to now I can understand, you getting hot headed and all the other stuff, but like if that's something that he's good at and it's something that, the world can see, or not necessarily everybody, maybe just in that community because he didn't tell anybody that he was doing that or had those collections.
And I think that's what his point was, is he's good at it. And it's not that he's showing anybody it, and it's not that he's going out and selling it. I mean, he ends up actually selling it in the end, but because it helps make his family money and it helps make money for the person that he's trying to help out. But the point of it being prideful is it's getting you noticed. Not I'm not purporting to be an expert on the Amish community at all. From what I've read when I was younger, the the Amish they don't wear a lot of color. They do blacks, they do navies, darker colors that kind of just blend in. The Mennonites tend to do more of the just color changes, but then it's still very humbly dressed. You're covered from head down to your ankles. You're wearing shoes. You've got something on top of your head. Just because they're called the plain people. They're not bringing attention to themselves. They're not spouting off about what they can do and how yes, he's got a talent, and he's good at it. It's people have told him, like, when he starts taking things out, how good he is. The point of it being prideful is that um it almost comes across to other people with him just repetitively doing it, that it's showing off. For him, it's, I'm doing this to relax. I'm not taking it out. I'm not trying to sell it. I carve a bird, I put it to the side. I carve another bird, I put it to the side. Nothing happens with it. So it's not my pride, it's my relaxation.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's maybe this is just different situations, but I didn't see it as him showing off or anything. I just saw it as he was carving and he had this talent, and his father was basically upset about it, about what, you
And I,
know.
and I think that's what um, Lloyd's point is it's relaxation. It's not him showing off. It's not him really doing anything. It's just sitting in a corner. To him, carving the birds is like you and me sitting in a corner doing a puzzle.
Mhm.
Um, where the family comes in, and I'm not saying I agree with the family at all, where they're coming in is, you sit out here by yourself all day and this is what you do. You know, are you trying to get better? What is your plan with this? Are you attempting to use it to show off?
Yeah. And then, like he said, because he was what, tending the fields, the farm, and all that. Like he had so many big other responsibilities, and it was like he was wrong for doing that
For
to
taking
wind
time for
down.
himself.
Yeah, and it's like in the sense taking the time for yourself is, I won't say wrong, but looked upon in a different manner than if we take time for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's kind of part of the Amish um, mentality is, they have, in some ways, they're like the Mormons in that they have these giant families. Um,
Because she mentioned they are every point, everybody's like brother and sister there.
they they have, I mean, everybody's is somehow related down the line, and they have, like I said, just giant families. Um, and or like Catholics in the olden days used to have just massive families as well. Like my dad was born in the 50s and Italian Catholic on that side, and he has what in those days would have been a on the smaller end of a standard sized Catholic family. My dad was the oldest of four. To us, we sit here going, Jesus, four kids. Like, how are you dealing? That would, yeah, Italian Catholic, four kids, little family. You're good. You will deal. You've got your community to help you out. And that's kind of how the Amish work. This how the Amish work. Yeah, it's like your friends, your neighbors are distant cousins, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, and they come in, they help take care. I mean, and the nice thing about it is, I for what I would not want to give up for the to be Amish, they are fantastic in the communal aspect. They look after each other, they take care of each other. Mm-hmm. It's basically how things, we all think how things should be, but then we don't want to sit there and go help our neighbors because we live in apartments. And good God, my neighbor could be an axe murderer for all I know.
Yeah, because it's like Ellie or Elle, I think it was Ellie. It's like she was distraught because she couldn't provide for her mom the way, her brother could, because it was just them, just those two left, and she was
And
only
the men are actually
16.
supposed to be the ones that go out and take care of everything, like in terms
Yeah,
of money.
and so I feel like she had like a huge responsibility, and I really, when she kept bringing up about selling his woods, his carvings and stuff, I didn't really, I did see it as her going against his wishes, but she was kind of backed up against the wall because, you know, her uncles was taking care of the mortgage and everything, but they still had to have food on the table, other necessities that they needed. And her mom wasn't working, so she had to basically do what she felt she needed to do.
Her mom is essentially, well, I mean, it's how the Amish community works. Her mom was a housewife. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what they do. The women take care of the house, take care of the children, cook, clean, mend clothes, the whole shebang. And when her husband died, everything, she and her daughter got to live, Ellie got to live in the house, while Ellie's brother Seth, um, got everything.
Yeah.
And it fell to him to take care of his mother and look after her, and at least take care of Ellie until she got married. And which to me is almost ridiculous. Not that he's taking care of his sister until she gets married. It's more of this moving from your parents' house to a husband's house type of thing. But I realize that it's the Amish community and it's
Yeah,
not how we're raised.
yeah, and that's kinda like what I had to tell myself because, like, when you're trying to review it, you have to separate yourself from because you have so much of your own upbringing and beliefs, and, like, we think that that's I won't say crazy, that's not the word I'm looking for. Like, in a sense, me, I'm getting ready to move into my own house. My mom and dad won't be taking care of me, I'm gonna be taking care of myself. So, when you see it, when you read that, like, okay, she can but that's not how they are. It's a whole big
Uh, it's a thing. It's a whole thing.
yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I have to respect just the communal effort that goes into this stuff where, her uncles are there helping them pay the bank note and looking out for them. And, she's got no life experience, no work experience. Again, I'm granted, I realize she's 16, so I'm not expecting a 16-year-old to have experienced really much of anything.
I would
I'm gonna
say
put
there's
that.
most of it.
Yeah, but she's out there working and actually like trying to take care of her mother and trying to like do what she deems necessary, and I have to respect her for that. And yeah.
Yep. That's I don't know, but like I said, this story was probably just my favorite out of the whole bunch of it. There's a lot of stuff that I had to kind of just look over because of that, but it was still good.
I will say this, maybe part of me liking in general Amish fiction is I grew up in uh, a town called Lima, Ohio. If you guys have seen Glee, that town. Yeah. After about season 2, everybody was like, "Oh, okay," because like they actually used stuff in Glee from the town. Like the newspapers were actual newspapers that came out a couple days before the episodes did. Anywho, beside the point. Where we were was still technically part of Amish country. It wasn't full-fledged Amish country, at least not in Ohio. That was further east. The Pennsylvania's got hardcore Amish country too. Where I grew up, you had a little bit of Amish, and there was literally half an hour north of where I grew up was a Mennonite town. I actually would go to that town and get my eyes looked at by the optometrist. By the way, Dr. Yoder in Bluffton, Ohio. Fantastic. Should anybody from that area be watching, love him. Still the best doctor I've ever gone to. Anywho, but yeah, I mean, that was a Mennonite town, and I mean, like I said, I grew up and like saw it. Like I've maybe in that area, I've seen a grand total of 2 buggies on the street. You see it a bunch in Pennsylvania. You see it a lot in very rural Kentucky. Indiana, Illinois got a little bit of it. Though I do hear that they've migrated further west. They're now in like Montana, which seems bizarre to me that the Amish are now in Montana because that's very much a Midwestern, my part of the country type of thing. Sorry, I've gone on a whole rant about that. But like I've seen it. Like I grew up knowing that this community existed and kind of knowing that they were part of us but not part of us, and yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't really know a lot about the culture or anything like that. The only no, no, I don't. I thought about something, but I don't think that applies. But maybe so. Maybe it was like I won't say a few years back. It was a while back. When they were in Texas and they took all the kids away from them. Was that?
That that wasn't Amish. That was a weird offshoot of Mormonism.
Oh, okay.
Not like
Well, that's
full on Mormonism, but that was like just a weird. Even like the Mormons were saying they're going, these people are bizarre, like type of thing.
okay.
The Amish are. Oh, I'm trying to think of how to describe this. Okay, so with what we saw in Texas, that was a polygamous sect that it was weird. It was kind of like they kind of followed some Mormon rules with the polygamy and some of the belief systems, but it went more culty, like the comet is coming, come drink the Kool-Aid type of stuff.
Okay.
Um, Amish and Mennonite are very different than that. Granted, they're also different from mainstream Christianity as well. Um, so with the Amish community and the Mennonite community, they're cousins, and they're basically part sects of the same overarching religion. Mennonites tend to wear more color, not like a ton more, but again, they're fully clothed. Like they wear thick tights to cover shoes, long dresses, something on their hair. You really don't see any skin unless it's on their hands or face. Same with the Amish. The Mennonites are a little more willing to use cars, phones, electricity, that type of stuff. The Amish go further down the road where they wear navies, blacks, browns, dark reds, stuff that, kind of blends in more. And again, just completely covered. And they don't use, they might have electricity, but they aren't driving cars. They've got wagons. They aren't using phones. If they do, it's at like the local gas station or the shop in town. That kind of stuff. They're they tend to call each other the plain people, and they speak what we call Pennsylvania Dutch, which is a dialect of German. They speak English. I mean, they're here. The predominant language in our country is America, along with mixing of other languages, but their at home language is Pennsylvania Dutch. Not like from Denmark. Dutch being a bastardization of Deutsch, German. Basically, what we now know as the German language would be equivalent to modern English, current English. So it's like the most recent incarnation of the language. Pennsylvania Dutch is um, a left turn in the German language from like middle German, something like that.
Okay. That was interesting. I didn't know.
I've learned way too much. Yeah, not way too much because I'm sure there are like Amish scholars out there that know all sorts of stuff. This is just weird, random stuff that I've picked up in watching Amish Mafia. Not that I recommend that show because it's not very accurate, but I at least learned about the Pennsylvania Dutch language in that, and just growing up around it. So like in order to be able to tell the groups apart at all, you kind of had to pick up a couple things or read about it.
Okay. What about tell me about the rest of the story?
Well, with the second one, let's see here. That was A Bid for Love. Oh yeah, that's the one with the home churned butter.
Yeah, I did
I thought
read
that
half of that one.
I thought that one was really cool because okay, so like I said, the cool thing about Lovebirds is here's Lloyd kind of breaking with Amish tradition and selling his stuff and having everybody tell him how great it is while being prideful but not prideful. The cool thing to me about A Bid for Love is, well, I mean, you kind of saw the sale of Amish goods where when you're in Sorry, my shirt. When you're in Amish country, like they sell so much of their stuff. Like it's because tourists come and we're there with like our cameras and our cars, like, oh my God. And they just, and I mean, and they take it like, um, which, I feel bad. Like when I see them, I'm like, hey, keep walking. Because I don't want to be that jackass that's like in their face about this. But so you get to see a little bit of them trying to sell their wares, which they do. And that's part of like how the community gets the money. But you also see this female that's actually doing stuff and going out to the local markets and trying to sell her stuff and actually kind of holding, being in some way a non-traditional Amish female in the most traditional sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I the parts that I did read, I did like it. And like I said at the beginning, I really just think it's mostly the writing because I could definitely tell the difference in the writing from the first part, the first story, and the second one, and all through the rest. So I
And I
didn't
think,
read all of this.
yeah, and I think for me, that's part of what held my attention was the different writing styles because when it's a book of novellas that's by the same author, and I'm trying to like get through it, but it's different stories, but all in the same vein, it all bleeds together. Where this one, I could actively tell this, Bid for Love is a different story from Lovebirds, different from Love and Sword, different from Sweeter Than Honey.
Yeah. And I think the characters, I did like them. I like the personality. I think the only one that I really could not really get with, I guess, was in the third one. What was his name?
The boy in that one was, well, I say boy because like everybody
Yeah.
in these stories are like 24 tops.
Yeah.
At,
And I
at,
was like,
at 30, I'm like, you're babies.
he was
Why are we
talking
talking about marriage?
he was talking like when they had the youth gathering, and he was talking like I shouldn't I'll be there
I'm,
because I
I'm,
live there, but
I'm too old for this. Bitch, you're 20.
yeah, and he
You're
was
still
like,
a
the girl
youth.
told like you're talking like you're 40. And
Yeah,
then when he
yeah, you're
laughed, she said,
not
"Don't
old
take it
and
as a
haggard.
compliment."
You are 20 years.
Yeah, she was like, "Take it as a compliment." I'm like, a compliment, but hey, to each his own.
And I'm sitting there going, you're still baby face. You probably still got a little bit of that baby. You haven't grown your beard yet. And I say that because they're, in the Amish community, you can tell the married ones, again, things I found out when I was younger. The married ones are the ones with the beards. If they don't have a beard, they're not married.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Which is also part of I don't know if you guys heard it, but no, I was still in grad school. So about 6 years ago, there's this whole thing in in the area of Lancaster, Ohio, which is like right in. They're always called Lancaster, by the way, for whatever reason. Like Lancaster, Pennsylvania,
Mm.
totally Amish country. Lancaster, Ohio, again, Amish country. Like they're always called Lancaster. But in the middle of like Lancaster, Ohio, somebody got a hold of several older Amish gentlemen and just like went after them, shaved their beards. And it was like a whole thing. I think it made like national news. Like at least in Ohio and Pennsylvania, like I was hearing about it. I was in freaking Columbus. Like,
How did they get them to shave their beard? They just
oh, like they just like no, like they didn't make the men shave their beards. They like held them down and did it to them.
oh, wow.
Yeah, like it was this whole thing. And then of course Amish Mafia comes on and a couple friends and I who were losers for reality TV stuff. And when I say losers, I'm not saying we're sitting there watching, The Biggest Loser and The Amazing Race, which are legitimate competitive shows. But we weren't watching that. We were sitting there watching Ice Loves Coco and keeping up with the Kardashians to date ourselves. And, pre Chris Humphries, keeping up with the Kardashians too. We're sitting there watching Amish Mafia and they claim to have a mafia. I'm like, bitch, I'm a quarter Italian. You aren't the mafia. Not that I deal with them, but those people are legit. You aren't. But they were sitting there like they had essentially people that they call it their mafia, but they're the underworld of the Amish community. So they had like these guys that were basically taking actions against people that they deemed to be doing something that was improper towards the Amish community or something, according to the show. And that's how it resulted. And my friends and I are like, okay, where we kind of understand it. Why are you going for their beard? Like that's just that's like a wedding ring. Like why are you doing that? Like, and like I said, this was like something that was getting discussed. Like people I knew were like, oh my god, did you hear about that Amish thing like in Lancaster? And we're freaking sitting in Columbus, Ohio, where we're aware of the Amish community because we live in a state where it exists, but it has no effect on the rest of our lives. And we're sitting here going, yeah, that was all over the news. Did you see the stuff that was shared on Facebook about it?
Because I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, this was like 5-6 years ago. And we're just sitting there like, holy shit. I mean, granted, there were a few of us that like, we're surprised about it because, like I said, you never hear anything like coming out of Amish country. And, a few of us, like I said, were sitting there going, holy shit. And then you'd get to the family like Thanksgiving and, just sitting there sharing stories and go, hey, did you just like, it would be like a random one liner of, hey, did you hear about that Amish beer thing? Yeah, I did. Okay. How's math class going, sweetie?
I had never even heard of that show, the
Yeah,
Amish
it was
Market.
on Discovery. It was on Discovery Channel for like 2 seasons. It wasn't great.
It
We
sounds like it's not great.
It really was not. And they had like all these what they were trying to refer to as badass Amish guys. We're like, can't be a badass in that hat. I'm sorry. Um
What's that called when they reach a certain age and they had to leave?
oh, that's the room springer.
The what?
The room springer. It's not that they have to leave. They hit oh god, what's the age? I'm gonna
Was it
find this out.
15?
It might be 15. I want to say it's in the teenage years. And it can last for a couple years. Basically, the idea of it is once you hit the appropriate age for your room springer, you get to go out in the world. And you get to, by the way, if anybody knows anything about the Amish community that I've missed, please let us know. If I gave incorrect information, please let me know. I am sorry. I'm really not trying to give inaccurate information. I'm going on 10-year-old memories for some of this stuff. But the room springer is, and forgive my pronunciation because I know I'm most likely saying that incorrectly. You hit a certain age within your teenage years, and you are allowed to go out in the world. My understanding is if they choose not to, they don't necessarily have to, but they get a year or two essentially of freedom where they can go do what they want. And by what they want, if they sit there and go, I'm going to public school, they get to go to public school. They get to wear pants and colors and get their ears pierced. And I mean, the list continues. It's basically go out, experience the world, figure out who you are. But it's also that time period to see what's out there and if you really do want to be Amish. So when you come back to the community, you announce your decision essentially. And if you decide to stay, you're welcome back. Like, yeah. Like,
So if you decide to stay out in the world,
if you decide to stay out in the world, you get to leave, but I don't fully know what the repercussions of that are.
okay.
Like, some of the stuff in Lifetime movies and some of this stuff, like what we read today, sounds like when you, after a room springer, if you decide to come back, you get to come back. If you decide to leave, it sounds like you get to leave with the bare minimum and you basically have to figure out how to make your way in the world and you don't get to communicate with your family. I don't fully think that's how. I don't fully think that's what happens. And this is also one, one of many things with the Amish community that I don't fully understand. Um, but there was for a while. What was the show on or TLC? Another
I think I know what you're talking about.
Amish Mafia or
No,
Bruce Springer.
the show when they have to leave.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't
I think I
remember
know.
where they're like living in the city. This is after they've chosen not to be Amish anymore, and it seems like some of them still talk to family members, and others have like zero relationship with family. Like if I had to guess, that would what happens after has to do with family as well as orthodoxy of the community, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like how Amish are you in a sense? Without there's I think there's like new order and old order Amish. I mean, they're not, and this is coming from a non-Amish person that spent more time around Mennonites, granted, than Amish. I mean, on the rare occasions that I was around them. I think there's new order and old order Amish. I want to say there might be new order and old order Mennonite. They're not super different. Like yeah, like they aren't super different. I think it's just more of the differences tend to be policy and procedure type of stuff.
Yeah, and if you break them, you got really serious repercussions.
But yeah.
What about? Because you said, okay, why didn't you like the last two stories?
Okay, so I liked I think for me with Love in Store, I liked it. I just really wasn't that was a little it felt more romance to me, like more straight romance to me than the other ones did in some ways. And I'm not super, super, super into romance type of stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But I mean, it was a good story. And I mean, I think it worked well with novellas. And that I will say this with each story, like it worked well within the novella format. Like you had a very clear beginning, middle, and end, and you had closure at the end of each story. At least for me. The one I liked least was Sweeter Than Honey. Because that one was just so freaking tropey. Like they weren't really trying to push any boundaries within the genre for it. It's like here's little Amish girl who's making and it's let's see here. Shattering a jar of pickled beets wasn't the impression Isabella hoped to make on her first trip to the local combination store. So yeah, I mean, you're essentially starting it out with this fresh off the farm kid who's Amish that clearly doesn't know what's going on, and she's lower level teen, not even lower level teen, but like that mentality for us. Um, and it's like, can she fix this broken heart? Can she do blah blah blah? And it's just like,
yeah, I see that.
you're just sitting there going, good freaking god! Like they've hit. I mean, it much is a standard tropey Amish romance, which is, I mean, on some level is fine. People love it. But I mean, I read Beverly Lewis for a while, and Beverly Lewis is solid and writes it well. I mean, there's a reason she's the big name in Amish fiction. But you're sitting there going, okay, the other three stories, in some way, shape, or form, are attempting to do something, regardless of how mildly they're doing it. They're at least trying to do something different within the Amish romance genre.
Yeah, because I felt like the first two, it was that nice, sweet, coming of age contemporary novel.
Yeah, I mean, they were like,
With
it
the
was
other
a
one.
nice mix of romance and Amish and coming of age. And like I said, you've got Ellie there, like, trying to take care of her family and trying to, like, take on what would have been more of a traditional masculine role. Just because that's what's been put on her at this point. She was one of two children. The other one was a boy. He's dead. Now she's got to figure out how to make things work. And you've got this person who's doing what everybody refers to as prideful. And the other one is you're dealing with, you've got somebody as a confirmed bachelor, but you're seeing, somebody going out and making her own stuff that she's selling at the market. And on that level is a little more independent rather than being the dependent type of thing. I mean, granted, she's still going to be more dependent than, say, you and I are, because that's just how the story's set up, and that's how women in the Amish community tend to be. Mm-hmm. No judgment. I mean, it's just a different culture from what we're used to. But, I mean, you're seeing it where they've got the sale of goods and basically people making things and being creative. And as they're doing that, you're not seeing it as the prideful side of making things. This is how we're, keeping our house afloat. And this is, we're doing this for the tourists. And, in that way, kind of pushing the genre. And then we get to, like I said, with Sweeter Than Honey, you're just sitting there going, Jesus Christ, can't, do something. And I mean, in the third one, there at least have her going and working at the mill. That's not a traditional female role in the Amish community, but here she is working in the mill. And I mean, even then, outside of that, that seems to be like the one thing that's really making it different. The rest of it is just very typical romance. This is just you've got your little girl and she's trying to win the heart of the boy who's trying to figure this stuff out, and oh good God, just stop.
Yeah, and I can see all those tropes being problematic.
And they're all in one story. They're all in like a 90-page story.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know, when I was going through Goodreads, are these characters from another set of stories and they're just all piled up in a novella?
I don't think so.
Because there was a quick review about the first one, and they mentioned Lloyd, and they said something else about him, or maybe it's just another character named Lloyd, another Amish book. But I don't know, it made me think that these characters are from other stories. Kind of like from other series, and then you just put them together to form one big novella of them. Instead of having their own separate.
I will say this, and looking at Goodreads, while I didn't get that feeling from these, looking at Amy Clipston has done a shit ton. This is not a judgment. It's more of just being impressive for the sheer amount that she's done. She's got a couple novellas, one called A Spoonful of Love, an Amish kitchen novella. She's got stuff in another set called, and that set is called An Amish Heirloom. So we might see more An Amish Winter, the Kaufman, and then she's got another thing called Summer Storms. That's a novella. And she's got a whole bunch of just series as well. She's got, let me see here. She's got an Amish Sweethearts book, Roadside Assistance, the Kaufman Amish, and Amish Homestead. She's got a few series, so it wouldn't be surprising if, in minor ways, her characters popped up in other books.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. When I saw that, and I liked her story the most, I thought about finding out what book that was and getting that to read.
Well, she's got, like I said, she's got a whole bunch of series as well as other things. And I mean, we're dealing with the Amish community in these books. While I didn't get the feeling that these people were, say, I don't feel like there's a whole full book with Seth Lloyd and Ellie Lapp out there. I mean, but that was just my impression. I would not be surprised if in other Amish fiction books that say Amy Clipson or Kathleen Fuller wrote, if the characters from their short story from their novellas in here popped up in full-fledged novels later in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, because I can see that, especially with the first and the second one. I can see it. I don't know. Well, I'll take that back. The first one, if she was to do that with the first one, I think that would drag it out because it wasn't such a big climax or arc of the story in the first one. The second one, I can probably see it, but not the first one.
Well, and I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if in minor ways they popped up. Like somebody mentioned, oh, were you at Ellie and Lloyd's wedding? Or, oh, it's so sad what happened to Seth Lapp. Like
Yeah,
that type of stuff. Or, they happen to be at family dinners or something. I mean, granted, that also wouldn't surprise me with the other three because, again, we're talking about the Amish community. Like when you have like if we're talking about, say, Lancaster, Ohio, and that's where they're at. And sorry, I keep going back to Ohio on this one, but that's in terms of the Amish community, what I know. But I wouldn't be surprised if, say, they're in Lancaster, Ohio, and half of the Amish community there is related in some way, shape, or form.
yeah. Let me see if we have any questions or anything.
While you're looking at that, I will say this, speaking of questions, I thought it was cool that each novella ended with a set of discussion questions.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. We don't really have any questions or anything.
Well, let me see if anything popped up on the buddy read. And for everybody, I hope we've explained, or yeah, I hope we explained our thoughts well. I hope that we explained what our limited knowledge of the uh, community well. And it doesn't look like anybody has said anything on the outside of us has said anything on the books
Okay.
and on Buddy Read.
Okay. But for these
Well,
to be all novellas, this was they were good all together.
mhm, mhm,
Like you said before, it had a nice start, middle, and ending of it, and it wasn't rushed or anything like that. It didn't feel like how some novellas they have so much to put in just a little space. I feel like it
yeah.
wasn't like that with these.
Or you get like the Throne of Glass novellas. They're attempting to use the novella to tell a bigger story. And then you sit there, or at least I sat there with the Throne of Glass books going, why don't you just write a novel and tell your story?
Yeah, because those could have been put in a novel format, kind of like prequels.
Yeah. I mean, they could have easily just said, okay, this is book zero. Because I've seen, especially in the YA section, novel, like a set of novels, and then they go back and say, this one is zero. Because somebody at some point went back and just told the beginning of the story because people were interested. Like, she could have done that. But yeah, I mean, with these, the nice thing was they didn't, a good chunk of them did not have a giant arc to them. I mean, if you're counting, okay, gravy. If you're counting pages and counting everything, Lovebirds was 102 pages. A Bid for Love was about 90 pages, 92. I mean, they're not they're not giant books. I mean, they could very easily have been a book by itself. I mean, F. Scott Fitzgerald did a short story called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. If you're interested, go read it. They made at least one movie about it. The book quite literally is about this big. And it's this good book. And it's on its own at a whopping like 80 pages. And all of these are bigger than themselves and bigger than that and could have very well. And I mean, that's including discussion questions. At least one of the stories has this, which is a family tree. I
Oh
mean, and
yeah,
they're including that kind of stuff
that
and
was
glossaries.
easy.
So
But yeah, overall that was good, and um, I will say probably eventually one day I will pick this back up when I'm feeling it and in the mood for it. Because I won't say that I won't go back. This is just a not right now story.
yeah, and I think that's what happened to me was, I didn't read a ton, but I read a few, in late middle school, early high school, and went through them and loved it. And then literally between then and, you know, January 1st of this year, did not think about any more Amish fiction, with the exception of, holy shit, why do we keep buying this Amish fiction when we have walls and walls full of them at the library? There might be a reason they don't let me do any book selection at the library. Um,
Yeah, because you
because
can see how repetitive it is.
yeah, but I mean, between like I said, between then and like January 1st, didn't think of it, and then I go through the airport and I'm like, huh, novellas. It's been a while since I've read Amish fiction. I will grab this book and take it home with me. And I mean, I honestly will probably hang on to this book for a while. I mean, I own it, and yeah, I mean, I liked it. Like there's no reason for me to get rid of it. No big reason anyway. And I mean, it's different from everything else I have. Like I don't own a ton of Amish fiction. I own classics. I own a couple Star Wars books, a shit ton of Agatha Christie because that's my boo. I own every single thing that Jane Austen wrote because again, my boo. Not a ton of Amish fiction though.
Yeah, I haven't read any of Agatha Christie's novels. I want to get into them because I love her
I
Poirot. Um,
well, I actually got into Agatha Christie in a weird way. I When I started on Netflix, one of the things that they recommended was Poirot with David Suchet. And I was like, okay, whatever. I really was not into British TV at that point. Hadn't ever read Agatha Christie. Had no freaking clue who Hercule Poirot was. Like, I hadn't even seen Murder on the Orient Express, any of the movies that they made of it. No clue.
what?
So Netflix goes, "Hey, Lauren, look what we found you." I'm like, okay, I'll, I'll trust Netflix's judgment here. We've all been in that boat where we're like, let's trust Netflix's judgment, and then we get burned and we're like, Jesus Christ, what did I just do? And where did that hour go that I had? But yeah, so I get it, and I loved it, and of course I started with Murder on the Orient Express because that's the one that they recommended. Little did I know that was like halfway through the Hercule Poirot series. And so I watched the show and I watched a few more. I'm like, oh man, these are great. And thank God it was the ones with David Suchet, because if I hadn't started with those, I probably never would have read Agatha Christie. But I go into those and then I start reading the books, and I'm now reading Miss Marple, and I've watched some Miss Marple as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's worked out, and I've actually had to put my family on an ever so slight Agatha Christie buying ban for me. So I have a bunch of series of shelves, and one of my series shelves has an entire row that is nothing but Agatha Christie. And I've read only part of it. I need to get further into it before I get more. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's how I got into it. And for the record, as a former English major, since I'm already on an Agatha Christie tangent, do not refer to Kenneth Branagh as Poirot.
No, don't do that, please.
Don't. I get that he was Poirot in the Murder on the Orient Express movie, and
That was
that was okay. I liked it because it was Branagh, and Branagh did a good job in the role, and Branagh makes good movies.
yeah, it was okay.
It,
It shows
it's
that I don't know
and
how
it wasn't Suchet though.
it
It
was
was
what
not. It was not David Suchet though. David Suchet was Poirot for 20 years. He talked to Agatha Christie's family. He read all the books. He did the research. That's freaking Poirot right there, David Suchet. I had a coworker yesterday who's on good terms with me. We're talking about Harry Potter because my library just went through Harry Potter week and went well. We had a bunch of programs. Yesterday, one of my coworkers goes, Poirot was in Harry Potter. He was the defense against the dark arts teacher. And I literally was just so confused. I'm sitting there going, no, he wasn't. No, Lauren, he was. He was in Harry Potter. No, he wasn't. Like, I'm sitting there, like, I was on the verge of arguing with him about it. And he goes, yeah, Kenneth Branagh. Yeah, you mean?
Yeah, he's in the second one.
Yeah. And I go, yes, Branagh was in Harry Potter, but Branagh is not Poirot. And he goes, but he was Poirot in Murder on the Orient Express. I go, yeah, he was, and he directed it too.
He must never seen the other ones.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. And I go,
that's why.
But Brandon's not Poirot, buddy. I said, do not ever go up to somebody with an English degree and tell them that Brandon's Poirot. And he goes, okay, why? I said, because for English degrees, one person is God. His name is Kenneth Branagh. He's not Poirot. He does Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's his forte.
Yeah. And I mean, he directs movies and he does a fantastic job. He's been in Shakespeare. He's directed Shakespeare. He's actually in a documentary about Hamlet, which is actually really good. And I've seen him direct other things, and he's actually really good in Valkyrie. And I loved him as Gilderoy Lockhart, in part because I see Gilderoy Lockhart as a Shakespearean fool. But because I'm that person when I read Harry Potter, where I'm like, oh,
I'm reading it now.
Okay. Always a good choice. But I'm sitting there going, oh, way to go, JK, for stealing from Shakespeare. I love you. But yeah, I mean, but I'm sitting there going, to English majors, Branagh's not Poirot. Branagh's fantastic. We love him. And only recently did I get my little brother to tell me that he finally kind of sort of got why English majors love Branagh. He's like, yeah, the Shakespeare guy, right? Yes. I finally have my little brother trained. Thank God. It only took 30 years. But you know what it's like. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Give your brother about another 10 years and you'll be like, finally. But yeah, I mean, Branagh's Shakespeare. The guy who does Poirot and who does a fantastic job as Poirot is David Suchet, who's also an English actor. But like I said, he's the guy that's done like the research and has read the books. Basically, he's done to Poirot and Agatha Christie what Branagh did to Shakespeare. And I mean, Suchet, I almost called him Poirot, damn it. But Suchet even was in a documentary about Agatha Christie. He was the narrator of it and like doing this investigation with it, and it was great. Sorry, I'm very ranty today, and I apologize, but yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. I didn't too much care for the new one, but I love Agatha Christie's mysteries. My mom and I watch them all the time.
I approve of this message.
I'm gonna go ahead and announce the book for next month.
Okay.
It's one that I picked. It is Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. It is a trilogy, I believe.
It looked like it was part of a trilogy, yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. It's got some really good reviews. It's a nice fantasy, magical realism, I believe. And it's been on my TBR for a while, and I own that copy. So I'm excited to read that one.
It's one that I haven't read, so I'm looking forward to it. But yeah. But I can, if anybody was interested in the rants that I did, I can give you a list of Suchet things to watch with Poirot. I can do a list of Branagh stuff to watch with Shakespeare. We can always come up with Beverly Lewis things to read on, for Amish fiction in general, because, we see those every day and we know what, if we don't read them, we at least know what's getting moved and people are reading. So that usually is an indicator that it's
Yeah.
solid. And also, one other thing that I'm going to point out is if you're interested in, if this one didn't float your boat, but you're still kind of sort of interested in it, try the movie For Richer or Poorer. It's got Kirstie Alley and Tim Allen, because I'm going real 90s right now. For Richer or Poorer, Kirstie Alley, Tim Allen. It's a comedy with them attempting to hide out from, it's either the law or the mafia. One of the two or both. And they're hiding out in Amish country. The flip side of that is The Witness with Harrison Ford, and that deals with the Amish community a lot as well.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
You're like me. Harrison Ford is the guy.
Yeah. Well, see if there's any. It doesn't like there's any more questions or any questions. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't see any.
Yeah. Well, we will announce the day on. We'll announce the day when we figure it out. I think we're gonna
It's
end up
gonna be
with
a
the last.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's
It's
gonna. I think it's the last Tuesday. The May 29th, I believe.
yeah. I think that's the day we picked.
Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna go back. We're gonna try to go back to the last Tuesday. I'm gonna apologize because this month we did a Saturday just because I had stuff going on this coming week and couldn't get around it. So we're gonna go back to that since that's now our normal day. We are going to read Truth Witch. Everything will get announced and re-announced on Facebook. I always try to announce it on mine with Ericka tagged in it, and then as soon as I do that, I get it onto the buddy read as well.
Yep. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And again, we apologize for last month. It was just crazy. We had
Yeah,
crazy weather here. One day is
crazy
super cold, the next day is really hot, the next day is raining, and then we don't know what the
sun.
next day will be.
We've had a few tornado warnings, which has been great.
Yeah.
Especially when we have to drive through it for a library program. Got to do that last month.
Yeah.
But yeah. But thank you for joining us. We hope you had
And
fun. We did.
yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yep.
All right, guys. See you next month.
See you next month, guys.
Bye.